Well, today we are going to be talking about the parable of the sower. So I'm going to read from Luke chapter 8. I'm going to read the verses 4 through 8, and then I'm going to add on the back part of the verse 15. So hear the word of the Lord. And when a great crowd was gathering, and people from town after town came to him, he said in a parable, a sower went out to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some fell along the path and was trampled underfoot, and the birds of the air devoured it. And some fell on the rock, and as it grew up, it withered away because it had no moisture. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up with it and choked it. And some fell into good soil, and grew and yielded 100-fold. As he said these things, he called out, "He who has an ear, let him hear." Hearing the word, hold it fast in an honest and good heart, and bear fruit with patience. I remember when I was in grade school, and we were given a project to have to try to grow this seed. And I remember having to take a glass jar, and we were given a seed, and we had to put some dirt in there, and we had to take this moist paper towel, and we wrapped that seed, we pushed the seed against the jar and then pushed that moist paper towel against the seed to keep it stuck there. And then we had to care for that seed. So we had to fertilize that soil, we had to keep it wet, and we had to keep that jar in the sunlight. Well, my seed didn't make it too long because I did not really care for the soil that much. I'd let it get dry, or I'd keep the jar in the closet in the dark places too long sometimes. And so yeah, my seed, man, it died. It didn't make it too far. How about you? Are you good at growing anything? Do you like to get out there in your lawn and in your garden and maybe grow some vegetables, or maybe you like to grow flowers in a flower bed? Well, I tell you, when I was growing up as a young person, there was our neighbor. He would sneak away into my dad's barn, and he would get all this horse manure. And every spring and every fall, he would work that manure into the ground. Because you know why? The soil is the most important part of having a good crop. You see, when you tend to the soil, that's when the seed is going to grow the best. And I tell you, this person would come out every summer. He would have these big 16-inch size softball tomatoes, big and red and juicy. Well, in this text, Jesus is talking about a life that produces a fruit. And the question I have for you today is, does your life produce a fruit? Would you say that your life produces a crop for the kingdom? Maybe another question should be, does your family or your friends think that your life produces a fruit or a crop for the kingdom? Well, Jesus Christ wants your life to produce a fruit. He wants your life to have a real good harvest. But he's saying in the text that there's some obstacles that get in our way. Some obstacles that help our soil not do so well. You see, in the text, the seed means the Word of God. It represents the Word of God. And the soil is your heart. And today, Jesus wants us to take a soil sample. That's what farmers do, you know. They stick the soil tester into the ground, deep into the soil, and they pull up the dirt to test the soil, to see what it looks like. Well, we're going to look at 3 soil samples that we need to be aware of, because they will prohibit us from having a good crop and a good harvest. The first soil sample that Jesus wants us to take a look at today is this. He says, I want you to be aware of the hard soil. Now, what's the hard soil? Well, the hard soil is somebody who's maybe gone through life and they've had something very traumatic happen, and they are bitter at God. They're maybe angry at God. And so anytime somebody mentions church, or they mention Jesus, or they mention anything about the scriptures, their heart is just turned away. They don't want to talk about it. Well, obviously that soil is not going to be too good, too rich for growing things for the kingdom. The second soil sample that the Lord wants us to be aware of is a rocky soil. Now, what's a rocky soil? Well, a rocky soil is somebody who's very impulsive, or They're very emotional. They just come to know the Lord and they're very enthusiastic about Him. They think that now that they know Jesus, all of their problems are just going to go away and life is going to be grand. Well, they come off of that mountaintop experience and they come back into the valley where life is lived, and I tell you, life just kind of swallows them up, and all that enthusiasm for Jesus kind of withers away because, as the text says, their roots have not gone too deep. And so they forget about the things of the Lord. Not going to make for a good harvest. And the third soil sample that the Lord wants us to be aware of is the ones with thorns and weeds. Now, what is that? Well, that's somebody who loves the Lord, but also loves the things of this world. In fact, they're pulled in both directions. They want to serve the Lord, but they want to also have vacations, and they want to spend their money on what they want to spend their money on. And what Jesus is saying is, you know what? Those people aren't committed to me first. Kingdom things aren't first in their life. You find yourself with any one of these soil samples? Because Jesus' pleasure for you is that He wants you to have good soil. He desires it for you. And so what is good soil? How do you get good soil? Well, the way to get a good soil is that you have to be obedient. You have a choice to make in life. You can do the things that you want to do. You can spend life going in ways that you want to go into. But when Jesus asks you to do something, He's saying, be obedient to me. And that will create good soil. He's also saying, I want you to cling to my word. When troubles come along, I want you to cling to my promises. Cling to the things that I say. Cling to my path. And you'll create a good soil. And one of the most important things we have to remember, too, with the last verse that I read, is this is a long harvest, okay? This isn't just a short harvest time. This is a lifelong harvest. And what Jesus is saying is this: I need you to be obedient. I need you to cling to my word. But I need also for your faith to be patient. I need you to have a patient faith. You put those three things together, and you're going to create a good soil. A good soil. But we can't do this on our own. It just doesn't happen overnight. We really need to ask Jesus to cultivate that good soil. We need Him, like our neighbor, we need to have Him put that manure into the soil. We need to ask Jesus to put those desires, that obedience, and that patience, and that wanting to cling to His word into our heart. If you do that, you're going to have a harvest, and people are going to say, wow, look at the size of that guy's tomatoes. Look at the fruit. But more importantly, Jesus is going to be proud of you. He is going to say, wow, look at the fruit in that person. Look at the fruit in that he has come upon. I'm proud of that person. Well, thanks for listening to my little testimony here today. Have a great day.